The only thing worse than arriving late to a billionaire's gala was arriving late and carrying 3 cascading bouquets that smelled like regret, lavender, and funeral homes. Nora Hart stood outside the gilded glass doors of the Locke Foundation Gala, heart hammering against her ribs like a hummingbird on espresso. Her delivery van had broken down 2 blocks away. She'd tripped over a curb, and now her dress, which was not hers, but a loaner from her roommate, had grass stains near the hem and a mysterious yellow smear on the sleeve. "This is fine," she muttered to herself, rebalancing the awkward weight of the bouquets. "Totally fine. Nothing says professional like floral carnage and sweat stains." Inside, crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead like an upside-down galaxy. Women in sequins and men in tuxedos clinked champagne glasses and laughed in the cultivated, practiced way only the ultra-rich seemed to master. Classical music floated in the air, soft, pretentious, and expensive. Nora tiptoed toward the event planner near the stage. "Hi, I'm Nora Hart from Petal and Stem," she whispered. "Sorry You're late," the woman snapped, gesturing wildly. "Centerpiece bouquets! Stage! Now!" Nora nodded like a soldier receiving battle orders and began her mission. Halfway across the ballroom, she realized her heel was loose. It wobbled, then twisted, then snapped. The world tilted. A screech escaped her lips as she lunged forward, 3 towering floral arrangements tumbling from her arms like dominoes of doom. Time slowed. A hush rippled across the room. And then, the grand finale. 1 bouquet landed squarely on the chest of a very tall, very stoic, very terrifying man in a charcoal tux. He didn't flinch, but his sharp blue eyes, colder than the champagne chilling in crystal buckets, narrowed. Every camera in the room clicked in unison. Nora, mortified, lay sprawled on the polished marble floor, tulle skirt crumpled, ankle throbbing, face inches from the billionaire she had just floral assaulted. "Oh my God," she whispered. He looked down, expression unreadable. "Miss, are you part of the entertainment?" A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. Nora wanted the earth to open and swallow her whole. She scrambled to her feet, pushing a rogue rose stem from her tangled curls. "No, I'm the florist. These were for the stage. My heel broke. And then there was gravity." He raised a hand to silence her. And just like that, the room fell quiet again. A waiter appeared with a fresh champagne flute, which the billionaire took without breaking eye contact. He turned to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said coolly, "I present to you the most dramatic floral delivery in Manhattan history." Laughter again. This time louder. Nora's face burned. She mumbled an apology, gathered what remained of her dignity and scattered bouquet, and limped toward the side entrance, head ducked like a runaway duckling in stilettos. Behind her, Grayson Locke watched her go, his jaw clenched, and the beginnings of an idea forming in his mind. He had a problem, an image problem. Tonight was supposed to change that. Instead, he now had trending headlines reading, "The Flower Girl Who Body Slammed the Billionaire." And yet, the chaos had pulled more attention than anything he'd done in months. Interesting. Very interesting. Nora woke up to 34 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and 1 very angry text from her landlord that simply read, "You're famous. Rent's still due." She blinked against the sunlight pouring through the window and fumbled for her phone. The screen lit up with notifications that looked like an influencer's dream, or a professional's nightmare. Flower fail. Blooming disaster. Batch, who is the flower girl? She tapped the first video. There she was, slow motion and all, flinging herself across the gala ballroom like a human bouquet cannon. And there he was, Grayson Locke, standing tall and emotionless as roses and eucalyptus showered him like confetti. Nora groaned into her pillow. She had just become the most meme-worthy florist on the East Coast. A knock on the door startled her. It was Jenny, her roommate, holding a latte and grinning like Christmas came early. "You're on every platform. My mom thinks you staged the whole thing." "I wish I had that kind of foresight," Nora mumbled, taking the coffee and sipping it like it might undo the trauma. "Do you think he's going to sue me? Or blacklist me from every event in the city?" Jenny shrugged. "Hard to say. You did make him trend on Twitter for the first time in ever." That part was true. Grayson Locke, the notoriously media-averse billionaire, had been the face of 1,000 business magazines but rarely smiled, rarely dated publicly, and rarely caused a stir, until Nora knocked him over with 3 pounds of peonies. The news outlets had been relentless. Locke crushed by love? The bouquet bandit. Who is she? Love at first floral attack? Her phone rang again. This time it was her shop's landline. She answered with dread. "Petal and stem." "This is Carter from Locke PR." The voice was curt, clipped, and clearly from someone who hadn't smiled since the early 2000s. "Mr. Locke would like to speak with you, in person, today. 2 p.m. Locke Tower. Don't be late." "Wait, what?" "Why—" Click. Nora stared at the dead line, stunned. Jenny snatched the phone. Was that him? Worse, it was his people. "Girl," Jenny whispered, eyes wide, "you're either getting sued, silenced, or seduced." 2 hours later, Nora stood at the top of Locke Tower, staring at a view that screamed power and money and dangerously clean glass. She tugged on the sleeve of her cardigan, floral print as usual, and tried not to sweat through it. The double doors opened, and she was ushered into an office so minimalist it looked like a meditation app. Grayson Locke sat behind a desk the size of her apartment kitchen. Sharp suit, sharper jawline, eyes like ice chips in a whiskey glass. He didn't stand, didn't smile. Just looked at her like she was an equation he hadn't solved yet. "Miss Hart," he said smoothly, "I assume you've seen the media coverage." She tried for humor. "Hard to miss. I'm considering changing careers to circus clown." No reaction. The man was a glacier. He tapped a tablet on his desk, flipping to an image of them mid-fall, petals in the air. "My board is displeased. They think I'm unrelatable, distant, cold." "Well," she said, cheeks pink, "you did get hit by a metaphor for springtime and didn't even flinch." His mouth twitched, barely. "Precisely." He stood then, walking to the window. "My foundation needs donations. Public image matters. So here's the offer. Pretend to be my fiancée." Silence. Nora blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "A temporary engagement. For optics. You'll attend events, smile for cameras, wear a ring. In return, I'll pay off your business loan." "Completely." Nora stared at him, certain she was being punked. "You want me, to pretend we're in love?" He raised an eyebrow. "You're already trending. The narrative writes itself." "Do you even know my name?" "I do now. Nora Hart, age 27, owner of Petal and Stem, struggling finances. You once failed your driver's test 4 times." She gawked. "You did a background check." "I'm thorough." Nora folded her arms. "You can't just buy someone's life like it's a scented candle." "No," he said, voice steady, "but I can offer you a lifeline. And I think you're smart enough to know a good deal when you hear it." She hesitated. Her business was hanging by a thread. Her credit cards were maxed out. And this man, this absurdly rich, infuriatingly calm man, was offering to fix it all in exchange for her dignity and a whole lot of fake smiling. "You're serious?" "Always." She stared at him, heart pounding, and whispered, "This is insane." A pause, then a smirk, A real one, brief but dazzling. "Welcome to my world, Miss Hart." Nora sat stiffly in the plush chair across from Grayson Locke, still trying to process the words that had just exited his stupidly perfect mouth. "Fake engagement," she repeated slowly. "Like you and me, together, in love, in public?" Grayson didn't even blink. "Correct. You'll be required to appear with me at certain events. Charity galas, business functions, perhaps a few casual dates for paparazzi optics." "Oh, casual dates," she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "So romantic. Will I be provided cue cards? Or do I just ad-lib my affection for the emotionally unavailable?" His mouth twitched again. That almost smirk. "You're sharp, Miss Hart. That's good. The media will love you." She stood, pacing the room. "Okay, let me get this straight. You want me, an underpaid florist with the ankle coordination of a drunk giraffe, to pretend I'm madly in love with you, a billionaire with the warmth of a snow globe, all for... what? A media redemption arc?" Grayson rose from his chair, buttoning his jacket with the kind of precision that made her teeth itch. "You're not just a florist. You're a florist who accidentally gave me more publicity in 24 hours than my PR team has in 3 years. The footage of you is everywhere. People are calling us accidental soulmates." "Great," she muttered. "So naturally, your next step is to offer me hush money and an engagement ring." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "You need help. I have the resources. I need relatability. You provide that in spades. It's mutually beneficial." She crossed her arms. "You really think people will believe that we're together?" "You're already in heels above your pay grade," he said dryly. "Might as well lean in." Nora scowled. "You know, for a man who wants a fake fiancée, you're really bad at fake charm." He gave a mild shrug. "It's why I need you." She blinked. "Well, that was unexpected." He opened a sleek folder from his desk and handed it to her. "Contract. You'll find the terms generous. 90 days, appearances, a social media presence, no actual intimacy required, if that's your concern." She flipped through the papers. "A $50,000 advance, full payment of my business debt, access to a private driver, personal stylist, and... wait, is this a clause about a media-friendly pet?" "I have a dog," he said simply. "People like dogs." "You think I'm going to pretend to be in love with you and play stepmom to your golden retriever? She's a labradoodle, and her name is Cinnamon." Nora stared at him, then burst out laughing. It was so absurd, so ridiculous, so rich guy cliché that she couldn't stop. Grayson Locke, CEO of Locke Tech, billionaire heartthrob, and ice-sculpted robot, owned a dog named Cinnamon. When her laughter died down, she exhaled. "This is insane. But it solves both our problems." She looked down at the contract, then back at him. His expression was calm, controlled. But beneath that perfect suit and boardroom bravado, something flickered. Desperation? Loneliness? Or just the strategic mind of a man who never lost? "I want 3 things added," she said suddenly. His brows lifted. "Negotiating? I'm not stupid. First, weekly check-ins with my shop staff. I'm not abandoning petal and stem, done. Second, if I'm faking affection in public, you have to fake being a human in private. No robot routines, no dead silence dinners. You'll at least pretend we have chemistry." He hesitated. "Define pretend?" She smirked. "Conversation? Banter? Maybe a smile now and then. Try not to look like someone just told you your yacht has a scratch." His lips thinned. "Fine. And third," she paused, "I get to pick the engagement ring. If I have to wear a lie on my hand, it better be pretty." He gave a slow, amused nod. "Agreed." She took a breath, a long one, then signed. Grayson Locke held out his hand. "Welcome to the arrangement." She shook it, his grip firm and cool. And just like that, she was engaged to the most insufferably handsome man in Manhattan. For now. Probably. Hopefully. Right? You walk like a flamingo on Red Bull. Nora paused mid-stride, heel teetering on the marble floor of the private etiquette suite inside Lock Tower. I'm sorry, she said, whirling around to glare at the latest member of her rapidly growing fake fiancé survival team, a petite and terrifying woman named Colette. I wasn't aware flamingos were on the syllabus. They are if you plan on walking next to Mr. Locke in Louboutin heels with a spine made of dignity, Colette snapped, flicking her pointer in the air like a fencing foil. In the corner, Grayson sat on a velvet chaise, legs crossed, sipping coffee, like he wasn't watching his fake future wife being verbally filleted. Nora gave him a look. You know, it wouldn't kill you to pretend I'm not being trained like a show pony. It might, he said without looking up from his phone. Oh, good. Humor. That's new. He almost smiled. Almost. By noon, Nora had survived posture lessons. Your shoulders are staging a rebellion. A crash course in fake couple backstory creation. You met in a flower market in Montauk, romantic, breezy, very boho, and 10 horrifying minutes of attempting to drink champagne without giggling. She was currently seated in a conference room filled with color-coded folders labeled Paparazzi Protocol, Approved Phrases, and Smile Like You're in Love, page 3, The Soft Gaze. You'll need a signature couple pose, said Everett, Grayson's image consultant, flipping through a slideshow. May I suggest the waist hold? It screams protective, intimate, and moderately horny. Nora choked on her water. I'm sorry, moderately? Grayson didn't blink. I veto that one. Everett sighed. Fine. Then we'll try the temple lean. What is this? Nora whispered. A rom-com or a furniture catalog? Still, she tried. They practiced poses like actors blocking a scene. Her hand on his chest, his arm around her waist. Smiles that hovered in the space between awkward and almost natural. They made it halfway through a practice dance before Nora stepped on his foot, twice. I swear I'm not trying to sabotage you, she said, exasperated, pulling back. Grayson, to her surprise, didn't look annoyed. Instead, he watched her for a moment. You're doing fine. That stopped her, because for once his voice didn't sound like a spreadsheet. It sounded real, quiet, maybe even a little warm. You just need to stop overthinking it, he added. You're not auditioning, you're just being. Nora raised an eyebrow. You say that like it's easy. For someone like you, it might be. She tilted her head. Was that a compliment? He turned away. Don't get used to it. That evening, they did their first trial run. Dinner at the Glass Garden, a rooftop restaurant that was always accidentally swarmed by paparazzi. Grayson wore a navy suit and a pocket square so crisp it could slice glass. Nora wore a designer dress, selected by his stylist, silky, deep emerald, and so stunning she almost didn't recognize herself in the mirror. You clean up well, he said when she entered the penthouse foyer. So do you, she replied, then narrowed her eyes. Was that our first real compliment exchange? I'm logging it in the PR spreadsheet, he said dryly. Milestone achieved. They took the elevator together. For a moment, the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Then she caught their reflection in the mirrored wall. They looked good. Suspiciously good. When they stepped out of the private car and entered the restaurant, the flashes started immediately. Cameras, whispers, gasps. And then her hand found his. Instinctively, he glanced down. Are you nervous? I once gave a eulogy with lipstick on my teeth, she whispered. So yes. His fingers tightened around hers. "Smile," he murmured. "We're falling in love." They posed, they ordered wine. They told the fake story of their Montauk flower market meet cute so many times it almost started to sound real. And when she laughed too loudly at one of his rare jokes, he didn't pull away. He smiled too. Not for the cameras, just for her. Nora stared at herself in the floor-length mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back. Her emerald gown shimmered under the chandelier light, the off-shoulder neckline skimming her collarbone, just enough to suggest elegance without screaming it. Her hair had been twisted into some sort of loose, cascading braid that made her feel like royalty, or at the very least, the protagonist in one of those billionaire romance novels she used to secretly read on her phone during slow hours at the flower shop. But it wasn't the dress, or the makeup, or the diamonds Grayson's stylist had casually loaned her. It was the way she stood, taller, straight, like she belonged, even if she didn't believe it yet. "You ready?" came a voice from the doorway. She turned and forgot how to speak for a second. Grayson Locke looked devastating in a midnight black tuxedo. No tie. Just the sharp collar open at the throat, like he was inviting sin in for a drink. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at her. And something unspoken, passed between them. "You look," he said, then stopped, brow furrowing slightly like emotions were foreign currency he wasn't used to spending. "Presentable?" She grinned. "Careful. If you keep tossing out compliments like that, I might fall in love for real." His lips curved slightly. "Let's not make things too believable." The gala was held at the Whitmore Estate, a sprawling mansion in upstate New York that had chandeliers larger than Nora's entire apartment. As they stepped out of the car, flashbulbs went off like a mini light show, and Nora instinctively reached for Grayson's arm. He offered it without hesitation. They walked the red carpet as a unit, silent, poised, perfect. He leaned in to whisper something about posture, but Nora smiled brightly for the cameras and whispered back, "Relax, darling. We practiced this." He stiffened, then chuckled. Actually chuckled, which only made the cameras flash harder. Inside the ballroom, the scent of polished wood, old money, and too much cologne hit her all at once. Waiters in white gloves floated past with champagne flutes, and a string quartet played a slow, elegant version of a Billie Eilish song. They made their rounds, greeting CEOs, nodding at journalists, accepting compliments on their romance. Nora smiled, posed, played her part like a pro. But she could feel it, the eyes watching her, judging. Not because she was fake, because she wasn't one of them. And then she showed up, Vanessa Sterling, model, socialite, former flame of Grayson Locke. She wore red, the kind of red that didn't say, "I'm here." It said, "I own the room." "Grayson," she purred, gliding up like a panther. "Didn't expect to see you here." "With someone." Her eyes flicked to Nora, slowly scanning her dress, her shoes, her entire existence. Grayson's voice was calm. "Vanessa, good evening." Nora stepped forward, smiling. "Hi, I'm Nora, his fiancée." Vanessa's perfectly manicured brows arched. "Fiancée? That's new." "It is," Nora said cheerfully. "We fell in love over hydrangeas and hazard cones. Very unorthodox." Grayson choked on his champagne. Vanessa tilted her head. "And how long have you two been in love?" "Long enough to finish each other's excuses," Grayson said, deadpan. Nora smirked. "Exactly. We're very synced." Vanessa looked between them, lips thinning, then gave a tight smile. "Well, best of luck." As she turned away, Nora muttered, "She's probably got you blocked on LinkedIn." Grayson didn't laugh, but he did smile. Later, as the orchestra started playing, he extended his hand. "Dance?" Nora blinked. "Wait, you dance?" "No," he said, "but we're going to anyway." She stepped into his arms, trying not to trip on his shoes, or her own insecurities. The music swelled around them, slow and dreamy, and for a moment it felt like the world shrunk down to just the two of them. "You handled Vanessa well," he said softly. "Was I convincing? Terrifyingly so?" She smiled. "You're not bad at pretending either." His gaze lingered on hers for a beat too long. Then he said, "I'm not sure I'm pretending anymore." Her heart did a backflip, but before she could respond, flash. A photographer caught them mid-spin, and just like that, reality clicked back in. Still, Nora danced with him until the music faded, until the whispers around them blurred, until she could almost believe this wasn't just a deal, but something real beginning to bloom. 3 days had passed since the gala, and something was off. Not wrong, exactly, just different. Grayson had started showing up in places he normally wouldn't, like the kitchen, at breakfast, making coffee. That morning, Nora walked in wearing a robe 2 sizes too big, hair tied up with a pen, and found him standing at the island like it was normal. "I thought billionaires don't operate before noon," she said groggily, reaching for a mug. "I made you coffee," he replied, holding it out. She stopped mid-reach. "Is it poisoned?" "Only if you consider hazelnut creamer a threat." She took the cup, sniffed it. "What's the catch?" He shrugged. "You looked tired yesterday. Figured you needed a head start." She stared at him, hard. "You're being weird." "I'm being considerate." "Exactly, weird." He almost smiled, again. This was becoming a habit. Later that afternoon, Nora returned to the penthouse after a long day at her shop. Petal and Stem was holding steady thanks to a recent media bump. A local influencer had called her the fiancée with the most relatable face in Manhattan, and she wasn't sure if that was an insult or a compliment. She found Grayson in his study, not typing, not on a call, just sitting there, flipping through a photography book. "You don't look busy," she said. "I canceled a few meetings." She frowned. "Why?" He looked up at her. "Because I wanted to spend time with you." Cue internal panic. Her heart skipped, cartwheeled, and crashed into her lungs. "That's not in the contract." "I'm aware." Silence stretched between them. He looked away. First, tapping a finger against the edge of the book like he regretted saying it. "Grayson," she said, walking in and folding her arms. "Are you okay? Like, emotionally?" "No," he said dryly. "I'm faking a relationship with a woman who talks in her sleep about orchids and eats cereal with a fork." "That was one time," she snapped. He looked at her then, really looked. "I'm not used to wanting to be around someone." She paused, and all the sarcasm drained out of her because she could see it. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't about PR. This was a man, untangling emotions with hands that only knew how to close deals. "What are we doing, Grayson?" He leaned back, folding his arms. "Right now? Ruining a perfectly nice afternoon." She laughed. "You know that's not what I mean." He didn't answer, because the answer scared him. That night, they had dinner in the penthouse instead of a restaurant. Nora cooked pasta. It came out slightly overdone and underseasoned, but she served it like it was Michelin-starred anyway. He took one bite and said, "Do you hate my taste buds?" She gave him the finger. He smiled. Over wine, they talked about nothing and everything. He told her about his childhood, not details, but shadows. A mother who smiled for cameras, but not at home. A father who taught silence better than love. "I learned how to be liked by shareholders before I ever learned how to be liked by people," he said. Nora swallowed the lump rising in her throat. "You're not unlikable. she said. "You're just emotionally constipated." His head tilted. "That's a new one." She raised her glass. "To breakthroughs?" They clinked glasses, but as the night wore on, that warm, safe feeling she'd started to trust began to tremble at the edges, because she was falling. And she wasn't sure how to land safely when the ground they stood on was made of contracts and deadlines. Around midnight, Nora was curled up on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the city lights when Grayson came out and joined her. "You know this isn't supposed to happen, right?" she said, not looking at him. "I know," he said. "But it is." He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, he whispered, "What if I don't want it to end?" She turned to him, heart hammering, eyes searching. But before either of them could say more, Grayson's phone buzzed. He checked it. His face darkened instantly. "What?" she asked. He stood, tucking the phone away. "Nothing, just a reminder." Reminder of what? He hesitated, then walked away. No explanation, no answer, just silence. And in that silence, a crack opened, one she couldn't unsee. It started with smoke, not metaphorical, not romantic, just sharp black smoke curling into the twilight like a warning. Nora got the call at 6:42 p.m. She was folding aprons in the back of the shop, humming a tune she couldn't place, when her assistant Rachel screamed from the front, "Nora, the alley! There's smoke!" Then came the blaring of alarms. The rest unfolded in chaos. Sirens, panicked neighbors, and the fire department pulling hoses through her boutique like it was a burning palace. She stood on the curb in paint-streaked jeans and a petal and stem sweatshirt, hands shaking, lips numb, as flames swallowed the storage wall and half her inventory. Flower petals, dried arrangements, ribbons, months of work, gone in a blink. Rachel clutched her arm. The electrical box must have shorted. It moved fast. Thank God no one was hurt. Nora nodded numbly, but inside, she was unraveling. This shop wasn't just her business. It was her freedom, her fight, her proof she could build something of her own after a lifetime of being overlooked. And now it was Ash. Grayson found out before she even called. His security team alerted him within minutes. He didn't hesitate. Meetings, calls, dinner plans, canceled. He was already halfway out the door by the time Nora's name flashed on his screen. When he arrived, she was sitting on the curb, face streaked with soot and tears, clutching a soaked box labeled "Spring Weddings Reserved." "Nora?" he said, stepping over a fire hose. She didn't look up. "Did you come to evaluate the damage?" she asked hoarsely. "See if the product you invested in is salvageable?" His jaw tensed. "Is that what you think I care about right now?" "I don't know, Grayson. You walked away last night without a word. I figured we were back to business mode." He crouched beside her. For once, no suit, no mask, just him, and something raw in his eyes. "I left because I was scared," he admitted. She blinked. "You? Scared?" "I felt something, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I did what I've always done. I left before someone else could." Her breath caught. "Then I saw this," he continued. "Your shop, the place that makes you light up. And I realized I'd never hated anything more than watching you sit here like this." She stared at him. "Say that again." "I hated seeing you like this?" "No, the part before." He hesitated, then whispered, "I felt something." And with that, the dam broke. Nora surged forward, burying her face in his chest, sobbing against his shirt. He wrapped his arms around her tightly, protectively, like he was anchoring them both. Later, as the fire department cleared out and the first responders left, Grayson called in a professional restoration team without asking. He offered her a suite at Lock Tower. She refused. Instead, she stayed at his penthouse. That night, she stood on the balcony in one of his shirts, watching the city like it owed her an explanation. Grayson joined her silently. "I built that place from scratch," she said, "with nothing but debt and determination." "And you'll build it again," he said softly, "but not alone." She turned to him. Their eyes met. This time, no banter, no script. He cupped her face gently and kissed her. Not because it was in the contract, not because anyone was watching, but because it had been building from the moment she crashed into his life with hydrangeas and sarcasm. And now it was real, unmistakably real. For the first time in weeks, Nora woke up wrapped in silk sheets that weren't hers, in a penthouse she still couldn't believe she had access to, and with Grayson Locke's arm draped loosely over her waist. And for a terrifying, wonderful second, she forgot everything was fake. Until she saw the paper. It was lying on the nightstand, neatly folded. The contract. The same contract they had signed weeks ago, full of rules and timelines and things she thought didn't matter anymore. It sat there like a ghost in broad daylight. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and padded barefoot to the balcony. The morning air was cool, almost sharp, and she clutched the contract tighter than she realized. When Grayson found her minutes later, she was still holding it. "You kept it?" she asked without turning around. He leaned on the doorframe, shirtless, hair mussed, annoyingly perfect for a man who'd just woken up. "Of course I kept it," he said. "Why?" "Because it's what brought you here." She turned to face him, eyes dark. "It's also what's keeping me from staying." He said nothing, just walked forward slowly, as if each step required caution. "You kissed me last night," she said. "Not because we were pretending, not for the cameras. You kissed me like it meant something." "It did," he said without hesitation. "Then why does this still exist?" She held up the contract. "Why haven't you torn this up?" His jaw tensed. "Because I'm not good at doing things without rules, Nora." She laughed bitterly. "You don't think I know that by now?" A long silence passed. Then he said, "I need time." "You had time," she said, "and now you're out of it." Nora left the penthouse that afternoon with nothing but her phone and her pride. Grayson didn't stop her, didn't chase her, didn't call, because he didn't know how. Every relationship he'd ever had, business or personal, was defined by structure, boundaries, conditions. Even his philanthropy was scheduled to the second. But this was chaos. Nora Hart was chaos, and he was in love with her. But he didn't know how to say that without feeling like he was losing control. So instead, he did what he'd always done. He tried to fix it on paper. That night, Nora sat alone in her apartment, half-unpacked boxes, smoke-scented clothes, and a mountain of unpaid invoices, and wondered how she had gone from fake fiancé to heartbreak in the span of 2 kisses. A knock at the door pulled her from the spiral. She opened it to find Grayson, holding flowers, real ones, not the expensive, curated kind she used to sell. These were wildflowers, imperfect, beautiful in their own messy way. "Your assistant said these were your favorite," he said softly. She didn't take them, just looked at him, waiting. "I rewrote the contract," he added. Her heart twisted. "Seriously?" He nodded and handed her a folded document. She opened it and blinked. Because it wasn't a contract. It was one sentence, typed in his no-nonsense font, centered on the page. "I don't want to fake anything with you ever again." Below it, his signature. Her breath caught. "No more rules?" she whispered. "No more rules," he said. "Just us." however that looks. Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for the flowers, then for him. And as he stepped inside and closed the door behind him, it wasn't just the end of a contract, it was the beginning of something terrifying, something real. If Nora had imagined what the first week of being truly in love with Grayson Locke would feel like, she never would have guessed this. Breakfast together, real ones. He brewed the coffee, she burned the toast, and somehow it became their thing. Late nights, tangled in sheets and conversation, quiet smiles across rooms, soft touches that meant, I'm here and I see you. For once, it didn't feel like pretending. It felt like home. But just as quickly as peace arrived, it shattered. It started with a headline. Grayson Locke's fiancée caught lying. Sources say engagement was a PR stunt. Nora saw it on her phone while waiting in line for a sandwich. She blinked once, twice, then opened the article. It included quotes from an anonymous former associate of Grayson's team. Leaked texts, photos from the original agreement being signed. Proof. Not just that they had faked the relationship, but that it had been orchestrated to help Grayson secure a merger. By the time she got home, the story was everywhere. She opened her apartment door to find Grayson already there, pacing like a tiger in a cage. You saw it, he said before she even spoke. I did. I'm handling it. How? He held up his phone. Press conference, legal action, whatever it takes. Her voice was quiet. It's already out there, Grayson. You can't unburn paper. He looked at her, and for the first time since their kiss, he seemed afraid. Not for himself, for her. This is going to destroy everything you built, she said, sitting down on the couch. The business deal, your public image. I don't care about any of that. You do, she said gently. You always have. He knelt in front of her. Not more than I care about you. Silence, tension, emotion clawed at the space between them. I can handle the media, she said, but what I can't handle is wondering if you're going to walk away again when things get messy. He reached for her hands, held them tight. I walked away once. I'm never doing it again. She studied him, and for once, believed him. That night they appeared on live television together. The host introduced them as the couple who fooled America and then fell in love for real. Grayson squeezed her hand beneath the table. The host started digging. So, Nora, did you ever expect to fall for a man who was paying you to fake it? Nora smiled. Number I expected to take the money, pose for a few photos, and go back to running my flower shop. Falling in love wasn't part of the deal. And you, Grayson? Were you just playing along until the headlines died down? He looked at the camera. Straight through the lens. Number I fell for her when she yelled at me about hydrangeas. I just didn't know it yet. The host blinked. So did half the nation. Nora's heart nearly exploded in her chest. And if I could go back, he continued, I wouldn't change the deal, because it brought me to her. There was a pause. Then the host leaned forward. Well, that was unexpected. The audience clapped. It wasn't just PR. It wasn't just spin. It was truth. Messy. Imperfect. Beautiful. Backstage, Grayson pulled Nora into his arms and kissed her temple. You did great, he whispered. You did better, she said, eyes watery. Who knew the billionaire robot had feelings? Don't let that get around, he deadpanned. It'll ruin my brand. They laughed, but deep down, they both knew. The world was no longer pretending, and neither were they. It had been 2 weeks since the storm hit, 2 weeks since their faces were plastered across news outlets. 2 weeks since Grayson Locke, the famously untouchable CEO, looked directly into a camera and told the world he'd fallen for a woman who once spilled coffee on his $1,000 shoes and called him a bouquet-hating robot. And now? Now, it was quieter. The press had moved on to fresher scandals. The buzz had slowed. Their names still trended occasionally. Lock Love was now a hashtag with its own fandom. But the frenzy had softened into curiosity, and Nora, she was rebuilding, literally. Petal and Stem was reopening in a brand new space, still modest, still hers, but this time with better wiring, stronger walls, and flowers that she chose with more care than ever. There was still soot in the folds of some of her memories, but there was also sunlight. Because this time, she wasn't rebuilding alone. On the morning of the grand reopening, Nora stood outside the storefront, double-checking the signs, the ribbon, the trays of overpriced lemon bars Rachel had insisted on. Her hands were shaking, her heart even worse. "You know," came a familiar voice behind her, "if you pass out, the flowers are going to start running this place themselves." She turned. Grayson stood there, holding 2 coffees and wearing a suit that should have been illegal. "You showed up," she whispered. He walked closer. "You doubted me?" She shrugged. "You did ghost me for 36 hours once after we kissed. Still not over that, huh? Not even slightly." He smiled. The real kind. The kind she'd only seen when he wasn't being a CEO. "Congratulations," he said, handing her the coffee. "You built something out of ash." "You helped," she replied. "Number I just stood beside you. You did the building." She stared at him. And without thinking, because thinking had never really worked well around him, she said, "I'm in love with you." He froze. Not like he didn't feel the same, but like it hit him all at once. She smiled nervously. "I figured if I waited until after the lemon bars were gone, I might lose my nerve." He set his coffee down. Took hers too. Then cupped her face. "I've loved you," he said, "since the day you told my PR manager she had the warmth of a microwave burrito." She choked on a laugh. "That was brutal." "Yeah, I fell hard." He kissed her. In front of the store. In front of Rachel. In front of the crowd that had gathered to support the reopening. And this time there were cameras. But no one cared. Because the kiss wasn't for them. It was for her. It was for him. It was for every moment in between. Hours later, after the ribbon was cut, the doors flung open, and Nora's flower shop bloomed again with laughter and color. She stood by the window, watching strangers fall in love with her creations. Grayson joined her, sipping coffee like he belonged there. "Still think emotions are inefficient?" she teased. He looked at her, smiled. "I think they're unpredictable, messy, and absolutely worth it." "Wow," she said, mock-shocked. "Growth," he leaned in. "I'm still not watering the succulents." "Deal." Outside, New York buzzed as it always did. Fast, loud, relentless. But inside, beneath the scent of fresh lilies and the sound of Nora's quiet laughter, something else bloomed. Something not arranged, not fabricated, just real. And for the first time, Grayson Locke didn't need a contract to feel safe. He had Nora. And that was enough.